So I'm excited to start a series. Kind of really started it last week, but since I hadn't officially started it, I'm saying it's officially starting now. But we're going to continue with some of the basic teachings of unity, but we're going to look at them from a couple of different approaches. We're going to be looking at Lessons in Truth, which is a classic unity text. We have it in the bookstore for sale if you want to buy it. You don't have to, but I would really recommend this for anyone who sincerely wants to learn more of what are the basic tenets of unity. It's an old book. It was written in 1903. This copy obviously was reprinted, but if you read the language, you believe that it was written in 1903 because it has a sort of stuffy kind of language, and it does have, I said before, male pronouns for God and that kind of stuff. But if you could look past that, which I certainly commend you to do, you find some beautifully written essential truths about what it is we hold to be the truth. And when you read these words, you probably will have the experience of, wow, this is such a universal message of truth. It is spiritual, and it does have some religious language in it, but it is really a deeply spiritual text, inviting us into this deep knowing of our spiritual nature, that this is the essence of what unity teaches, is that we have moved away from the religions and the doctrines and the dogmas that had a creator, divine God, Father up in heaven somewhere, and we have recognized and realized that the presence and the power that we do oftentimes call God is a indwelling, ever-abiding spirit presence, and that is who we truly are. And so in all various ways, Emily Cady, the author of the book, walks us into that truth. And then I have Stillness Speaks with me again today. I don't know particularly how I'm going to use it, but it spoke to me to take it with me today. So that's that. I want to go back just to last week, just to pick up the major thread of where we are, because it's the essential teachings, as I said before, and it's so well said here. This is on page 4 of the book. It says, each man, of course we know each person, she's saying, must sooner or later learn to stand alone with his God. Nothing else avails. Nothing else will ever make you the master of your own destiny. There is in your own indwelling all the life and health, all the strength and the peace and the joy, all the wisdom and support that you can ever need or desire. No one can give to you as can this indwelling Father. He's the spring of all joy and comfort and power. Hitherto, that's not a word I use, but must mean before. Hitherto we have believed that we were helped and comforted by others, that we received joy from outside circumstances and surroundings, but it simply is not so. All joy and strength and good spring up from a fountain within one's own being. And if we only knew this truth, we should not know that, because God in us is the fountain out of which springs all our good. Nothing that anyone does or says or fails to do or say can take away our joy and our good. Wow, kind of makes your head spin, doesn't it? Doesn't your butt want to just get into that? I'm talking about the B-U-T. Yes, okay. There was a quiet moment there. You're starting to write your little notes to tell the minister not to talk about my butt in the service, which I've never done, as far as I know. So today we move into this quintessential question, who am I? Who am I? And as we have gone through this journey of life, no matter how old we are, along the way, of course, we've all asked that question, haven't we? And we may ask it multiple times throughout the course of a day. But certainly in the course of a life, we have repeatedly inquired, who am I? What is this? What am I? What is my nature? And the world and the culture that we live in and the way that we are raised, gives us all these answers, yeah? of who we are. And so we begin to sort of build an image of ourself based upon how the world has reflected this identity to us, and how our family has reacted to us and responded to us. And of course, we have come to identify ourselves primarily in physical ways, yeah? And we think of ourselves as, these bodies and, and then the race that we are, and maybe the religion that we are part of, and the family that we grow up in, and where we live, and the neighborhood, and the ethnic origin from which we come, and the jobs that we hold. We become, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a baker, I'm a candlestick maker. Whatever it is you're doing becomes your identity. And then we have these little throwaway lines like, you are what you eat. I mean, I suppose that has value, but I've never looked like broccoli, and that's why I've stayed away from it. I did not want to look like broccoli. These things like clothes makes the man, and then of course you are who you know. Have you ever heard that one? Well, who you know, that's really what matters, not what you have or anything, but it's who you know. That's what matters. So we get that we have developed these sense of ourself, and these are all based on what? Externals or internal? External. Okay, great. So could we show this clip, Penny? I have a clip here that is really kind of sweet. It's about 2 minutes long, and it talks about the antidote to this. All right. What if this light bulb was a cure to racism, sexism, and classism? Hear me out. Do you know what people and light bulbs have in common? We both express as different colors, have different shapes, different sizes. We're manufactured in different places. Some of us are bright, some dim, some clear, and some broken. We appear to be very different on the outside. But the thing about these lights is there is one current running through each bulb. And in the same way, there is a singular energy running through each person on this planet. Doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter your race, gender, nationality, that's just the bulb. Inside of all that is who you really are, energy. Don't believe your energy? Well, riddle me this. Say you have a friend named Jim, and you've been visiting Jim in the hospital, until one day Jim unfortunately dies on the operating table. You say, oh no, Jim died, but his body is still there. His race, his gender. But you say, Jim died, because you know deep down that Jim was a lot more than his body. He was the intelligent energy that gave life to his body. Energy is what we are. And energy has no color. It's not Republican or Democrat, white or black. Energy is not Christian, Muslim, or atheist. Energy is. Energy is. We are intelligent, creative, universal energy. And if we understood that, then we would finally know
wise men
what
and women have been trying to tell us since the dawn of time that we are one.
Without using your thoughts, associations, perceptions, emotions, or memories, who are you? Keep quiet. Well, we seem to have run it in reverse. We started with keeping quiet. Anyway, thank you. So I just love that. These little metaphors sometimes can be so helpful to us, because even if we're trying to explain what we believe, right, or what our philosophy is about, you can use that wonderful metaphor that, just like a light bulb has different shapes and colors, but what is common to all of us is this life, energy, that which animates us, that which is the intelligence that we have. And all of those things are so hard to describe because they're invisible. In fact, that's one of the struggles with science and spirituality is that scientists, because they can't measure this thing called consciousness or awareness, they tend to write it off or discard it or say that it must be, some function of materiality of the brain, instead of those mystics of us who believe that consciousness is what we truly are, and that everything arises from consciousness, and without consciousness, nothing can appear. So that's our journey, and I do have a reading here from Eckhart in here about this. I just noticed it in my notes. So let me share what he says. He says, many things in your life matter, but only one thing matters absolutely. It matters whether you succeed or fail in the eyes of the world. It matters whether you are healthy or not healthy, whether you are educated or not educated. It matters whether you are rich or poor. It certainly makes a difference in your life. Yes, all these things matter, relatively speaking, but they don't matter absolutely. There is something that matters more than any of those things, and that is finding the essence of who you are beyond the short-lived entity, that short-lived personalized sense of self. And you find the peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but realizing who you are at the deepest level. So all those things, we spend most of our day and our time and our worry and our anxiety worrying about all those things, those many things, those 10,000 things that life is constantly asking us how we're going to deal with, and are we going to have enough of this or enough of that? And all the while, although those concerns are valid at the level of our humanness, and certainly we have to attend to those matters, but if that's the only place that I pay attention in my life, then I am missing this whole vast, deeper understanding of who I am, for which all of those outer things really don't matter. If I don't know who I am, then I am going to be doing this constant seek but not find. I'm kind of continually trying to change the circumstances of my life so that I'll finally be okay. There's this sort of endless seeking. Do we notice this? There's this endless seeking. And we live in a culture which is every day is coming up with new technology, new gadgets and gizmos and things to tell us that now life will be easier if we have this or we have that. And it's such a seductive sort of a path that is presented to us each and every day. And if we're not grounded, if I'm not grounded in the deeper search for who and what I truly am, then I can get tossed about by circumstances of life. Do you know this? Do we know this? That life seems like to have us by the throat sometimes when things are not going well, because we're so identified with the body, we're so identified with our job and our money and our circumstances, that if that's all that I think that I am, then life can have its way with me, yes? But if I know that I am something deeper, I am something more fundamental, more universal, more non-physical, completely non-physical, completely infinite in my nature. And if I have a sense of that, then I can go through the circumstances of life, whether I'm getting what I want or I'm not getting what I want. And a part of me I know is untouched. A part of me I know is immune from the vagaries of life, from the outrageous winds of fortune and misfortune. Don't touch this. And that's why this work is so important. Because if you haven't been challenged sufficiently in life to realize how important this awareness is, well, God bless you. And if you have, you know that the answer is not to try to become a better manifester in your life until you first understand what you should be manifesting in your awareness. Because what I know is that there is no such thing as a perfect outer condition that will make you happy all the time. Hello? Does anyone know what I'm saying? Haven't you thought you had it all figured out? I know what I need, and you'll get it. It's the house, it's the person, it's the money, it's the retirement, it's the whatever. And that same voice that was telling you, this is it, that seeking, desiring sort of voice of desperation, this yearning that sort of is always there, that same voice will never be satiated. It will be temporarily satisfied, yes? And then, just like the crabgrass in your yard, it emerges yet again. It's another season of yearning and wanting and desiring and craving, and now it's something else. It's somebody else. It's something more, just a little more, just a little more. And this is what the Buddhists call the definition of what? It's an S word. Suffering. Suffering. Suffering is wanting what you don't have. And there's always in this consciousness of superficiality and materiality, there is always a wanting of what I don't have. Because we're always thinking that there's something other than this, somewhere other than here, some moment other than this moment. This moment gets overlooked. As we said last week, when we overlook this moment, we overlook the only peace that we'll ever find. When I'm looking where over the rainbow, then I am missing the rainbow that is here. I am missing the perfection of my own being. And that's why this work is so essential. If we truly want to awaken, if we truly want to finally put an end to the seeking that is the seeking but not finding, which is the ego's plan, then we have to become familiar with this inner life, this life, the I am, as Jim said. So Lessons in Truth speaks extensively about this. She says, man originally lived in the spiritual part of himself. He fell by descending in his consciousness to the external or the more material part of himself. This could be likened to what? The Garden of Eden, which is the fall of man. Yeah. This is how it really happens in consciousness. It isn't an event in history. It's an event that happens within us. Mortal mind, the term so much used and so distracting to many, is the intellect, which gathers its information from the outside world through the five senses. This mortal mind has no way of knowing truth from falsehood. Uh-oh, is this a reliable mind? It is what Paul calls the mind on the flesh. In contradistinction, whoa, that's a nice word. In contradistinction to spiritual mind, and he flatly says, the mind on the flesh, believing what the carnal mind says, is death. Wow, that'll quiet the room. Sorrow, trouble, sickness. But to set the mind on the spirit is the ability to still the carnal mind and let the spirit speak within us. That is life and peace. Romans 8:6. So a modern day analogy, and I've shared this with you before, but it's just so good not to say again. Remember John Smith, who plays the part of King Lear? Some of you remember that. I'm going to read this to you because I'll do a better job of covering all the nuances of this. So we have this man, his name is John Smith, and he's an actor, and he gets the role to play King Lear. And so as he plays the part of King Lear, he moves into that role. It's a method acting experience for him, and so he becomes quite miserable. And so he's identifying himself with King Lear. So he's cutting himself off from his innate peace and happiness that he has as John Smith. The real self is John Smith. And he overlooks his innate peace and happiness. This is what the world would call ignorant, right? He's ignorant, but it's not the kind of pejorative word ignorant that you and I think of when we think of ignorant. In the Hindu tradition, ignorant means it means ignoring of who we essentially are. We're just ignoring who we are. That is the kind of ignorance. And when you do that, you fall into this ignorance. It's the same thing as we just talked about in the Christian tradition of the fall of man. When we forget who we are, that is the falling away. That is the falling into this illusory sense of who we are. We forget our spiritual nature. We forget the truth of who we are, and we fall asleep, and then we're in this dream state, and just like John Smith forgets that he's John Smith, and he becomes King Lear. So as soon as John Smith assumes this role, he becomes miserable. And if he's miserable, he is by definition seeking happiness. And that's what we do. It's not possible to be miserable and not seek happiness. So King Lear is in a state of perpetual seeking, and this seeking is relieved by brief moments of happiness and deep sleep. We all have that. We get what we want and we're happy for a moment, and when we're deeply asleep, the mind is completely inactive. So most of the time, King Lear seeks to bring his unhappiness to an end by the acquisition of an object, or a substance, or a state of mind, or an activity, or a relationship, and these do give him brief respites from this suffering, but it always comes back, yeah? So at some point, King Lear meets a friend, and his friend says to him, your suffering is not on account of your daughters, and it's because you've forgotten yourself. And his friend begins to lead him back on this journey. Who are you really, King Lear? And so King Lear starts to describe again, I'm the king of Denmark and I have 3 daughters. And his friend says, no, but prior to all of that, who are you? And his friend encourages King Lear to trace his experience back through the layers of thoughts and feelings until he gets to that essential, irreducible element of himself. And when he gets to that point, there is this recognition. I am John Smith. I am that I am. And with that recognition comes what has eluded him, the peace and the fulfillment that is inherent in being John Smith, that is inherent in you and I being who we are. You and I have taken on these roles in our life, and they have become so rigid. They're like an encasement that surrounds our essential being. And we're so identified with the encasement, with the body and the mind and the thoughts and the feelings. But all of those things, if we really look at them, we realize that all of them can be observed. Yes? And anything that you can observe cannot be who you are. You can observe your body. You can observe your feelings. You can observe all of your thoughts. You can observe the sensations that are happening in your body. All these things can be observed. Who observes? What observes? Do we ever ask that question? Do we ever get far enough back in our experience of life to realize that there is someone who is witnessing this whole show, including the most subtle nuances of this life, and never getting to know its nature? That's what spiritual awakening is about. It's about us first beginning to see through, well, I guess I can't be my job because I lost my job and I'm still here, right? I used to think I was a wife, but now I'm not married anymore, so I must not be a wife. That must not be a husband. I'm not married anymore. I used to be a rich, successful businessman. I don't have any money. I don't have a job. That must not be who I am. I am who, how people treat me. Well, I have some people who treat me really nicely, and I have some people that don't treat me very nicely at all. Which one am I? Do you see this? But don't we go through those gyrations every day in our identification of who we are? And it'd be okay if we could see that whimsically, like I'm presenting it to you now. Like, oh, look at what I'm doing. I'm thinking I'm my body because my body is, challenging me right now, right? But your body's those days when your body was not challenging in you. So if you're now identifying with your body because it's challenging you and you weren't identifying with it when it wasn't challenging you, then you realize there's a fallacy in your identification with your body. We begin to question more and more these assumptions of who we are. And as we do this and we keep moving backward, just like King Lear, he's so sure that he's King Lear. He's taken on this role for so doggone long that he forgets that he's playing a role, that he has assumed a character. And just as a character in a movie is only real from the point of view of that character, so a separate self is only real from the point of view of an imaginary point of view. Emily Cady says, sometimes, somewhere, every human being must come to himself. When will it be? I have opportunity to meet with so many people that are going through tough times in life. And as difficult as that can be often at the human level to deal with, it can be rife with spiritual opportunity. It can actually be the time when many people begin to question who and what they really are, because it feels like something very precious to them is now declining or it's been taken away from them. And they are really open to say, who am I really? That is a good question to ask. And when we begin to see that all that we thought we were now is changing or going away, then the more fundamental, deeper question can actually bear fruit, because we realize we are the one that has always been there, that has witnessed the comings and the goings, the ups and the downs, the good days and the bad days, the she loves me and she loves me not, and he's here and he's gone, and I'm a successful businessman with lots of money, and I don't have any money now, and I'm living on assistance, and all those things are variations at the external level of who we are, but who and what we are has never changed. That one has been with you from the beginning. That was there when you were 5, and when you were 10, and when you were 20, and 30, and 40, and will be there always. And someday when you lay down this representation of who you think you are, your body, it will be there, and it will watch it all go. And you, the energy that has animated that body, what do they say about energy? It can be neither what? Created or destroyed. You are a creation of the infinite. You cannot be created or destroyed no matter what happens. I want you to take a moment with me to close your eyes. Think of a situation in your life right now that maybe is challenging you, that really seems to, not a 10, if we've got a 10 in your life, but let's just look at about a 6. So we have to do this in a short while. Something that sort of plagues you right now with your job, your work, your body, your relationships. And what I'd like you to do is think in terms of this John Smith, King Lear analogy. And that you're now John Smith, and you're looking at your life with this particular situation as another costume, another situation that is in a role that you are playing. A man with cancer, a woman going through divorce, whatever the case may be, you are the one who is witnessing this. And then realize that this one who witnesses is never really touched by the circumstance. Just as a witness that at a crime scene is not touched by the crime. Just as a newspaper reporter on the scene is just noticing and indifferent in some sense to what happens, you, the aware one, the conscious one, who can tell this story, remains immune. This is who you are. This is awareness itself, consciousness itself. Remembering that anything that you can be aware of cannot be who you are. Like the eye cannot see the eye. tooth cannot bite the tooth. The knife cannot cut the knife. You can't be what you observe, but you can be the observer. You can be the silent witness. And as you deepen this sense, this perspective, it actually becomes a new identity. It is the I am that you are. Simply being. Not being a man, not being a woman, not being anything. Just aware being. Jesus said, before Abraham was, I am. He was not talking about a body, but an essence. Who you are is the essence of life that has chronicled these ups and downs, these many years. And you remain vibrantly alive and whole and awake and aware and conscious and clear. And this allows you to walk through the fire of life and not be burned. This is the good news and the great joy of spiritual understanding at its most simple, deepest level. When Jesus said, you shall know the truth, this is what he was talking about. And you will be made free. And so you are.